Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 21st April 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first article. Title says US currency watch list and intrusion into policy. So this article mainly talking about US currency watch list. So this topic will be very important regarding international relations, okay, which comes under GS paper 2. So this topic will be important from both the prelims and also mains point of view. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So this article mainly talking about US currency watch list, okay. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that Commerce Secretary questioned the rationale behind US government decision, okay. So US government recently came up with decision regarding this US currency watch list here. So under this decision, US government took that it put India on watch list for currency manipulators, okay. So India, it is mainly placed under USC currency watch list as currency manipulators. So now let us try to see what are details which are given in this article. So if you see details here, US Treasury Department had recently retained India on watch list mainly for we are having trade surplus with USA, that is about $20 billion, okay, or more, okay. So we are enjoying trade surplus with USA. So if you're talking about international trade here, so in this international trade it includes imports and exports, right? So as we know that every country which is not self-sufficient, so they are going to depend on another country for some products. So in international trade, it mainly includes imports and exports. For example, if we have a country 1 and if we have a country 2 here. So country 1 is exporting more than it is importing here, okay. So because of this country 1 which is having exports more than compared to that of imports. So this country 1 will enjoy trade surplus. And if you are talking about this country 2, so this country mainly importing more than it is exporting. So this country 2 mainly have trade deficit with this country 1. So this is a concept regarding what is this trade surplus and what is this trade deficit. And regarding trade between India and USA, so trade it is in favor of India, that is India enjoying trade surplus of about $20 billion or more. So if you are talking about exact data, as per 2020 to 21 data, it mainly says that India is enjoying trade surplus of $23 billion. And if you are comparing with last year, so last year is just $18 billion, now it is $23 billion. So we are enjoying trade surplus. So this is first important reason. And next one is currency manipulators. They submitted to US Congress citing that there is higher dollar purchases by RBI. So because of this, now US mainly alleged that India is having some manipulation of currency here, okay. But here in this article, our minister, that is our minister mainly saying that RBI taking necessary steps to maintain stability in financial markets and it is not accumulating forest reserves as it was done by China earlier. So these are some important details which are given in this article. Now let us talk about some facts regarding this, what is this currency manipulators, etc. okay. So first let us try to understand what is meaning of this currency manipulators, okay. So currency manipulators, it is a label which is given by US government to countries. So US government, whenever it feels any countries they are engaging in unfair currency practices, for example devaluing of their currency, okay. So because of devaluation of their currency here, that will lead to artificially lowering the value of its currency. So whenever, for example, if you are talking about currency of India, that is rupees, okay. So whenever we are going for devaluing of rupee, that means we can say, for example, as of now, let us take this comprehensive example here. So $1, for example, $1 is equal to 50 rupees. So whenever we are making this $1 is equal to 70 rupees here. That means whenever we are devaluing our currency, that means whenever we are devaluing our currency here, that will increase our exports. Okay, so here whenever any country which is mainly going for unfair trade practices or unfair currency practices, whenever they are going for devaluing of their currency, okay, that means artificially lowering the value of currency to gain some unfair advantages over other, then those countries will be labeled as this currency manipulators by US government. Okay, so now let us talk about what is this currency manipulator watch list. So here US Department of Treasury mainly releases one semi-annual report. Okay, so in this report it mainly track development in international economies and as well as inspect some foreign exchange rates. So finally they will come up with one currency manipulator watch list. So any country to be placed under this currency manipulator watch list here, so it need to have some criteria. Okay, so those criteria include mainly 3. Out of this, at least 2 need to be satisfied. So whenever that country need to be placed under this currency manipulator watch list. Okay, so if you're talking about those criteria, you need to remember that criteria. So first one is significant bilateral trade surplus with US. Okay, so whenever there is significant bilateral trade surplus with US, so it is one important criteria. Okay, so according to this bilateral surplus, it need to be at least US dollars here 20 billion over one year, that is 12 months of period. So within this 12 months of period, whenever trade surplus which is enjoying by any country which is more than or equal to 20 billion dollars, then this is one important criteria. And next one is a material current account surplus, okay, which is equivalent to at least 2% of GDP over 12 months period. That means whenever we are having some current account surplus, okay, so this current account surplus which is equivalent, that is equal to 2% of GDP of our country, okay, that is for over 12 months of period. So this is second important criteria. And third important criteria here is persistent one-sided intervention. So when net purchases of foreign currency, which is mainly totally at least 2% of country's GDP, so that is over 12 months. So this is also third important criteria. So if any country meets 2 out of these 3 criteria, then that country will be placed under this UNC currency manipulator list. Okay, so what will be consequence whenever any country which is placed under this list? So first and foremost thing you need to remember here is this list does not subject to any kind of sanctions. So there will be no kind of sanctions will be imposed. So this is important claims fact. And next one is but it will deteriorate global financial image of that country, okay, regarding foreign exchange policies and as well as under evaluation of currencies mainly to gain some export advantages. So this is some gist of this article. I hope it is clear, right? And now let us see next article. Title says Russia says it will launch own space station in 2025. So this article mainly talking about space station, that is Russia's own space station. So it is going to launch this space station in year 2025. It is just 4 years. Okay, so after 4 years, here Russia going to launch its own space station in 2025. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 3 under environment and ecology. So this topic will be important regarding prelims and also even mains. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So if you see here, this article mainly talking about Russia's space station, right? So if you see context, it mainly says that Russia's space agency said that it hoped to launch its own orbital station in 2025. So here context is Russian space agency said that it is mainly going to launch its own space station in 2025. So why this decision taken by Russian space agency? So if you're talking about this Russia, it mainly considers withdrawing from international space station. Okay, so because of this now it want to launch its own space station in 2025. And some more reasons behind this is there is rising tensions over the West. Okay, there is rising tensions with West and West started imposing sanctions on Russia. So there is increased pressure from West on Russia mainly after after occupying of this Crimea and as well as Ukraine. So there are some boundary tensions that are happening against this Ukraine, right? Okay, so because of all these things, there is increased sanctions and increased pressure on Russia. So because of this, Russia want to come out of this International Space Station and it want to launch its own space station by 2025. So now let us talk about some facts regarding this International Space Station. So this International Space Station, it is a kind of space station. So we can see some habitable, it is also called as a habitable artificial satellite. It is mainly placed in low Earth orbit. Okay, and the first component of this International Launch Station launched into orbit in 1998. And now it is the largest human-made body in low Earth orbit that is present now. Okay, so what are important functions of this International Space Station? It serves as microgravity and as well as space environment research lab. Okay, so whenever any crew members went to space here, so these members, they can conduct experiments regarding biology and as well as human biology, physics, astronomy, meteorology and as well as other fields in this space station. And if you are talking about some facts regarding this space station, so 5 different space agencies, they are representing 15 countries, they built with $100 billion, okay, regarding this International Space Station, and those countries are continuing to operate in it today. So those 5 important space agencies include, first one is NASA, that is USA Space Agency, and next one is Roscosmos, it is Russian Space Agency, and European Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, and as well as Japanese Aerospace Agency. Okay, so these are 5 important things that you should remember. And this is gist of this topic. I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says managing an upheaval. So this article mainly talking about universal vaccination. So this is very important, right, in this present situation of second wave of coronavirus. So if you see central theme of this article, it mainly says that universal vaccination, it is a necessary goal, but India is now here near achieving it. Okay, so this article mainly focusing on universal vaccination. So there are 2 articles which appeared in page number 6 and as well as 7 regarding this vaccine of COVID-19. So now let us talk about this article that appeared in page number 6. So this article will be important regarding health, which comes under GS paper 2. And this topic will be very much important regarding mains point of view. Okay, now let us try to discuss this article in a great detail. So if you are talking about present context, now we are in second wave of this coronavirus and daily about more than 2.5 lakh of new cases they are recorded daily in within 24 hours, right? So in this second wave, so we are in a situation of combination of panic and as well as public pressure and as well as comprehension of magnitude of crisis here. So we are having some panic. So what will happen in our near future? So whether government will be imposing full lockdown or not, whether government is going for imposition of curfew. So these are some important tensions that are prevailing in our society, and as well as there is public pressure regarding what are steps are taken by government to control this coronavirus transmission, right? So these are some important things now we are facing in this second wave of coronavirus. So because of all these things, now central government mainly prompted to authorize vaccines to anyone who achieved age of 18 years, okay, and also gave more control for states regarding vaccine procurement also. In yesterday's lecture, we studied about background regarding this article. From May 1st onwards, the people who attained age of 18 years, they can go for vaccination of this COVID-19. And regarding this vaccine procurement, states have given more control now. So regarding this vaccination drive, what are problem? The problem here is scaling up of production and as well as supply and management of vaccine. So these are 2 important problems regarding this COVID-19 vaccines. So if you're talking about background regarding vaccination drive, in December 2020, our government mainly came up with 4 priority groups. They should be given vaccines in phased manner. So in first phase, they already vaccinated frontline workers and as well as healthcare workers. And in phase 2, they are going to vaccinate people of above 45 years of age. And next one is below 45 years of age who are having some comorbidities, right? So in December 2020, India came with priority list, okay. So in that priority list, it made a talk that it would fully inoculate 300 million of most vulnerable people in India. But out of this 300 million, so about 127 million doses they have been administered, and 17 million they have been fully inoculated, and they constitute about 5% of intended beneficiaries. And finally, we also came up with inducing a section of those people who are above 45 years without underlying health conditions also. So if you are talking about optimistic rate here, that is 3 million doses per day. Okay. So whenever we are going for optimistic rate of 3 million doses per day here, so it takes 260 days from today for every adult to get vaccinated at least a single dose here. So this is one important challenge the government is facing now. And if you are talking about some facts regarding this vaccination, 8 months ago there is decline in daily infections, okay, and government also thought that this will be end of coronavirus, okay, and it did not tie up orders to inoculate most of its adults in this year, okay. So because of this, what happened now, second wave that had led in India, and we are facing some number of thousands of cases, 1 lakhs of cases every day, right? So thousands of deaths are seeing every day, and lakhs of cases they are registering every day newly. So India also applied some different standards like waiving like critical trials for Covaxin, and supply chains are inadequate. Okay, so if you are talking about the second wave of this coronavirus, there are some problems like hospitalization, there is lack of beds in hospitals, and as well as there is a medical oxygen crisis also seen. There is lack of proper supply of this medical oxygen. So because of this, that is leading to increase in number of deaths also, okay. But government also came with different plans now to deal with this second wave of coronavirus. So first one is from May 1st onwards, vaccination is opening to for all who attained age of 18 years. And next one is they are letting states to negotiate deals directly from this vaccine manufacturers. And next one is international vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna. So we are also having some supply commitments. They are tied up with this manufacturers, okay. That will help to procure enough stocks of vaccines here. Okay, and even governments are coming with some plans like curfews, and as well as lockdowns are resurfacing now. So because of this lockdowns, then what happened, whenever we want to move this vaccines from one state to another state, there will be logistics problem will be important, okay. So this is one of important challenging problem whenever we are going for lockdown, okay. So in this way, what can be done? Government rapidly can inoculate a nation of billions. It is very impossible now. So because of this, government should come up with a pragmatic, that is practical solution, and as well as preparedness, okay. So this is the gist of this article. And now let us try to talk about next article. Title says same old rote learning. So this article mainly talking about education system and pandemic. Education system and pandemic. So this article will be very important regarding GS paper 2 under education. And this topic will be very much important regarding mains, okay. So in mains in GS2 you can expect questions and also even essay. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So this article mainly talking about education system and the pandemic. So if you are talking about background of this article, so because of this pandemic, it disrupted almost all sectors, right? So even it disrupted our lives, bureaucrats, administrators who are associated with this education institutions, etc. So all these sectors are releasing a flood of notifications and as well as circulars regarding this global pandemic. So whatever notifications, whatever circulars are released from this education, they are unrealistic here, because one order fits all approach is established in those notifications, but it is a failure. So why this one order fits all is a failure? For example, if you are talking about India, we have number of states, right? So some states we have more literacy, and we are comparing with some states in northern India. So if you are talking about regions, there are a number of people who are living in tribal areas, and number of people who are living in remote areas. They do not have proper signal, proper access to internet. So whenever we are going for online learning or online teaching, some people will be beneficial and some people will be not beneficial. So because of this, we can see there is a digital divide that is present, okay. So because of this, one order fits all approach is established by this notifications and circulars. It is a failure here. Okay, so if you're talking about the second wave of this coronavirus, now this time students who are mainly from schools and as well as some higher education institutions, they need to move towards transition from one level to another level. So these students are exposed to administration inefficiencies mainly from past 1 year. For example, some schools are going for online teaching, some schools they're not going for online teaching. Okay, so because of this, there are some inadequacies that is seen from past 1 year by the students, mainly from schools and even at higher education institutions here. Okay, so because of all these things, there is disruption in academic schedule for more than 2 years that is mainly seen now. So if you're talking about this pandemic, it provided one important opportunity to invite sustainable reforms in our education system. Okay, but whatever opportunity which is provided by our pandemic here, we lost this opportunity. So if you're talking about this opportunity, it will be mainly help to work to teachers to address with their concerns and as well as encourage better student teacher interactions and as well as to develop a better framework regarding our education. But this opportunity which is provided by this pandemic mainly lost by India here. So if you're talking about this framework, mainly we need to determine qualificatory grade for students for more next stage of study here. So whenever we are going for traditional education system, so students used to go to school here and they sit in their places and they used to listen to lectures which are given by teacher, and after that teacher used to ask questions based on that lecture whether this student actively participating in school in classes or not, and later after some time there will be written test, there will be some test, slip test, so and so that will be happen. So now we are analyzing student capability based on test here. So this is traditional thing. So because of this COVID-19, we are going for online teaching. So in this online teaching, teacher will get a lot of time. Mainly the teacher, they can interact very much carefully with student and to understand whether these students are following classes or not through this online mode here, whether there are any doubts which are present to children or not, so whether those doubts are clarified or not here. So we need to encourage mainly student teacher interactions and we need to develop better framework regarding our education system. But this opportunity which is provided by our pandemic, that is mainly lost here. Okay, so instead administrator, they are going for rigid insistence on rote learning here, that is we are having this exam system. So what happened here, why this education system is new? Because of COVID-19, we are going for online learning, online teaching, etc. Even in schools also. Now here some 10th board and 12th board is there, right? So recently there are many state governments, they cancel this SSC exams, and as well as CBSE and ICSE also cancel this 10th class exams here. So though we are going for online teaching, so we are mainly going back to our rote learning of examination system here. Okay, so whenever we are going for examination system in this COVID-19 pandemic, that will increase mainly pressure on students and it will discourage them from memorizing, okay, to prepare for set and repetitive examination questions here. So in this way, what can be done? We can go for continuous assessment of student and we can go for evaluation of student not based on examination system. Okay, so we need to assess the students understanding rather than ability to memorize and to represent in examination here. Okay, so this is the important thing. So one important thing which is mainly missing in online classes here is teachers mainly fail to consider some initiatives to access mental health of teachers and as well as non-teaching staff and even students here. So this is one important thing that we are losing because of this global pandemic. And what is way forward? So first one is bureaucratic administrators mainly to consult academic stakeholders to find out solution here. And next one is institutions, they need to reconsider on objective of stressful final exams. And here institute, they need to consider some alternative forms of assessment mainly for promoting of students, and we need to explore some innovative ways for evaluating the teachers and learning processes. And next one is school boards and as well as universities, they need to alter the pattern of question papers here. And next one is we need to make some academic evaluation more rigorous and sustainable manner, and we need to reduce the number of questions to be attempted, and we need to mainly encourage students to write imaginarily rather than buttifying anything, okay, by hatching anything. So finally, this author mainly says that decisions should not be not big knee-jerk responses by cancelling or postponing of exams. So we need to take up some reforms in this education system rather than we are going for examination system. So this is gist of this topic. And now let us see next article. Title says there is no one size fits of all approach, but past has taught us some lessons. So this article mainly talking about vaccine hesitancy. So this article will be very much important regarding GS paper 2 under health and as well as governance. So this vaccine hesitancy will be a very important topic regarding mains point of view. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So this article mainly talking about vaccine hesitancy. So why we need to talk about vaccine hesitancy now? Now we are in second wave of this coronavirus, right? So in this second wave, we have good diagnostic tools, okay? We are increasing this diagnostic methods, and as well as even our healthcare workers are better equipped, and as well as they are more informed about the virus. And vaccines to counter this pandemic, they are present in available, or they are available in market, in government hospitals, and also even in some private hospitals. So in this way, this vaccines plays an important role mainly to control this transmission of this coronavirus. So this vaccine can mitigate the impact of infectious diseases also. So what is vaccine hesitancy? So if you are talking about, according to World Health Organization, it came up with one definition regarding this vaccine hesitancy. So if you are talking about what is vaccine hesitancy here, so there is reluctance and refusal to be vaccinated, and it is one of top threats of global health. So even though we get this vaccines which are available in market here, we are not moving outside to take this vaccine. We are not willing to take this vaccination. So this condition is called as vaccine hesitancy. Okay. So because of this vaccine hesitancy, we saw already detrimental impacts on public health in past. So if you are talking about this vaccine hesitancy, it is not new through this in this period of this coronavirus, but earlier also we have number of examples regarding this vaccine hesitancy. Even in British, there is vaccine hesitancy around vaccination of whooping cough in 1970s and 1980s, and in 1990s there is vaccine hesitancy regarding measles, and in Japan there is vaccine hesitancy regarding this human papilloma virus, and regarding this tetanus toxoid there was this vaccination or vaccine hesitancy in Kenya, and India also we saw vaccine hesitancy regarding this polio vaccination. Okay, so these are some important examples of earlier vaccine hesitancy in India. And now let us talk about what led to or what factors leading to this vaccine hesitancy. So first one is because of spread of misinformation, or there is no lack of sufficient information regarding efficiency, side effects, adverse effects. So what will be used, everything. And next one is there are also some concerns regarding safety of this vaccine, efficacy, and as well as side effects, mainly due to some record-breaking timelines of vaccines. And this one is there is also some religious taboos they are associated with this vaccine, and as well as there is competition among several companies, and there is spread of misinformation. Okay, so these are some important reasons behind this vaccine hesitancy. And what is way forward here? What can be done? So first important thing you need to remember here is people can be persuaded by scientific facts and as well as proper communication. So whenever we are showing facts regarding whenever you are taking this type of vaccine, that will decrease so and so. So how many people took this vaccine and how many people got this adverse drug reaction and how many people they are immunized. Okay. So whenever we are showing some scientific facts and as well as proper communication, so this is one important way we can decrease this vaccine hesitancy. And next one is we can use some celebrity effort. Okay. So celebrities are important people. They are one of important social drivers, or we can say they are agents of social drivers in our society here. So whenever we are using any celebrities, then people can get some behavioral change. Okay, they can change their attitude. So if you're talking about attitude which comes in your ethics paper, so there is ABC model here: affective, behavioral, and cognitive. So whenever we are using some celebrities, we can get this behavioral change in people towards this vaccine. And next one is we need to fact check any news related to this COVID-19. And this we have vaccine hesitancy mainly serves as agents of social change, and it also leads to erasing some skepticism here. So it is mainly associated with this vaccine production. And next one is we need to build public trust to clear and as well as transparent communication between public and government authorities. And for misinformation, we need to counter this misinformation, and whenever we are mainly passing any information or sharing any information, we need to think about it once before sharing this. Okay, and next one is we need to send some positive messages on social media platforms, and we need to demonstrate some positive behavior change in people also. And this one is we need to understand and address our community's concerns with empathy. Empathy is one of important term in our ethics paper. Empathy means we need to understand position of that person. Okay, so that is called as empathy here. So this is just of this topic, and now let us see next article. So before seeing this article, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. So if you want to clear UPSC in 2020, we came with one excellent, beneficial and highly economical course, that is Current Affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. So in this course, we are exclusively focusing on current affairs. Okay, why you need to prepare this current affairs? So before entering into examination hall, you need to know at least 1.5 years current affairs for sure. And this is exactly right time to join this course to cover this 1.5 years current affairs. And if you are talking about this mains answer writing practice, many students who are freshers, they ignore this mains answer writing practice. Finally, even though if they have cleared prelims, they cannot clear mains without this proper answer writing skills. So we need to focus on this answer writing skills on beginning of your preparation itself. Okay, so if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday, and we also provide you video solutions. So in this way, this course is exactly focusing on demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing. Please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible. Why I am saying as soon as possible? Because next month the cost of this course will be almost doubled. Okay. So because of this, I am intimating you early. So if you want to join this course, please hurry up. Okay. So if you want to talk to me regarding this course, you can talk to me on this number 8074765513. Okay. And now let's come back and let us see next article. Title says low carbon future through sector led change. So this article mainly talking about low carbon future. So why it is in news? So recently we are talking about net zero emissions, right? So this net zero emissions, it is highly in news. So recently we can say IPCC, it also came up with target of this net zero that should be achieved by 2050. Okay, so because of this is in news, and now we are going to discuss this article in a very great detail, and I will try my level best to make you understand this topic. Okay, so here now we need to know about background, and we need to know about context such that we can understand what author is saying in this article. Okay, so this article will be very important regarding environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. Okay. So context here is on April 2020, from April 2022 to 23 this year, that is from tomorrow onwards. Okay, from tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So there is Leader Climate Summit. This summit mainly organized by USA. Okay, so in this climate summit, so because of this climate summit, that is Leaders Climate Summit, that is going to be held from tomorrow onwards. It is mainly organized by USA. So because of this, there are many articles in newspapers are coming regarding this net zero. Okay, regarding this net zero, we are seeing there are number of articles that are appearing in newspaper. So these articles, they are about whether India should announce a net zero emission target or not. Okay, if it is going for announcing its emission target, but when it is going to achieve this. So these are two important things that we are mainly focusing. So mainly there are many articles that are appearing in newspaper regarding whether India will announce its net zero emission target. If yes, then by when? So these are two important questions they are mainly raising now. So recently, Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change came up with 1.5 degrees centigrade report. So this report mainly called for global carbon emission, and it also said that to reach this net zero target by 2050. Okay, so because of this, now there is increased pressure for all countries to announce their net zero target by 2050. Okay, if you see some countries, they are reaching this net zero target, they can be reached before 2050 also here. So if you are dividing countries which are present across world, we can divide into 3 categories. First one is developed, second one is developing, and third one is least developed. Okay, so if you are talking about developed countries, they already went for industrial revolutions in 1900s itself. So because of this, they released maximum amount of carbon dioxide emissions, right? So because of increased carbon dioxide emissions from these developed countries, now there are some effects of climate change are facing by these developing countries and as well as least developed countries. So whenever we are coming up with this target of 2050 for all countries, it will be not justified for these developing and as well as least developed countries. So it can be done by these developed countries because as much as carbon emissions they already released into atmosphere, right? So whenever other developing countries and least developed countries they want to accept this net zero target of 2020, it will be unjustified here, because whenever they are accepting this target, that will mainly have detrimental effect mainly on growth and development of their countries. Okay, they need to decrease their industrialization, so it will be detrimental for growth and development. Further, it leads to growth deficit. Okay, so this is about some important thing here. For developed countries, they can achieve before even 2050, but what about these developing and as well as least developed countries? For example, if you are taking about India, it is a developing countries. So whenever we are achieving this, whenever we have come up with this target of net zero by 2050, it will decrease economic activities in country, and finally it slows down our growth and development in country. Finally, it will lead to development deficit here. Okay. And if you're talking about India's action regarding this climate change or to control this climate change, so it already accepted this Paris Climate Agreement and it is came with this NDCs, that is nationally determined contributions, and it is in its way to achieve these targets which are given under this Paris Climate Deal. Okay. So if you're talking about per capita emissions of India, so per capita carbon emissions of India, it is less than half when we are comparing with that of this global average here. And what India can do now? So India can go for sectoral targeting mainly to decrease this carbon emissions. So here we can take only some modest steps here until richer countries do more regarding this global climate crisis. So we need not to go now for achieving this target, or we need not to accept this target of net zero achieving by 2050 here. So first let us give chance for developed countries mainly to achieve to do something regarding this controlling of global climate crisis. And when we are going for announcing of this target we achieve by 2050, and this commitment which will be a very risk. So it will be a very risk commitment. So much heavier burden that will be seen on India regarding decarbonization than many other wealthier countries here. So because of this, whenever we are accepting this commitment by 2050, so we have to face some serious compromise of India's developmental needs here. So in this way, this article mainly gives suggestion. So suggestion here is we can move towards third path. We need to focus on concrete, near-term and sectoral transmission such that we can go for decreasing of carbon dioxide emissions, and through which we can go for some aggressive adoption of technology here. So whenever we are going for technology and we are going for adopting new technologies, we can control this climate change to some extent, and we need to focus on some sectoral low carbon development pathways. So in this sectoral targets here, it mainly combines competitiveness, and as well as it mainly focus on even job creation and also distributional justice and low pollution. So in this way, it will be very much helpful to move towards net zero targets. Okay, so this article mainly focused on electricity sector. So now let us try to discuss about this electricity sector. So if you're talking about electricity sector here, first we need to go for decarbonization of this electricity sector, because most of electricity which we are producing, that is from fossil fuels, that is from coal. Okay, so then whenever we are going for production of electricity from coal, it will release large amount of carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere. So we need to go for decarbonization of our electricity sector. Okay, because this electricity sector, it is one of largest sector which contributes for 40% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So whenever we are going for decarbonization of this sector, it will help mainly to allow India to undertake some transformational changes regarding urbanization and also even industrial development here. So in this electricity sector, we need to focus on expanding our renewable electricity, okay. So we need to achieve our targets of 175 gigawatts of renewable capacity by 2022, and further we need to increase our target to 450 gigawatts by 2030 here, okay. So in this way, whenever we are moving towards or shifting towards this renewable energy sources, in this way we can limit carbon dioxide emissions that is coming from this electricity sector, okay. And we can go for low carbon electricity. So in this low carbon electricity, whenever we need to move for this renewable energy sector, we are facing some problems here. They include poor financing and management of distribution of companies, and as well as we are facing problem regarding technology. So these problems that can be addressed. And next one is we need to work on technology. For example, of electricity storage, smart grids and efficient technology such as transportation, etc. So in all these things we need to improve our technology. And next one is we need to improve efficiency of electricity use, okay. So whenever we want to go for decarbonizing of electricity supply here, for example, whatever we are using like ACs, fans and refrigerators, they contribute for 60% of electricity in households, okay. So because of this, we need to come up this aggressive set targets here. We need to move towards electricity efficiency equipment of this ACs, fans and refrigerators, so that we can decrease consumption of electricity from this households, okay. So this is gist of this topic. I hope it is clear. And now let us say next topic, the long battle against Maoist. So this article, it is mainly talking about recent attack in Sukma district, which is located in state of Chhattisgarh. And this article mainly talking about left-wing extremism. So if you're talking about this left-wing extremism, it is one of most important topic which is present under our syllabus in GS paper 3 regarding internal security. So this topic will be very important regarding mains point of view. So in our weekly current affairs lecture of April week 2, I discussed about this left-wing extremism in a very great detail. So I uploaded video today, okay. So if you have not watched that video, please watch that, okay. So this video, it is only for students who enroll this current affairs package, okay, not for all. So now let us see in detail what is this article talking about. So this article mainly talking about Maoist attack in Sukma, okay, Sukma district, which is located in Chhattisgarh. So in this attack, at least 22 Jawans they were killed and number of people they are injured here in deadly encounter between security forces and Naxals. Okay, that happened along this Sukma Bijapur border in Chhattisgarh. So first let us try to understand what is background regarding this Naxalism. So word Naxalism mainly have derived from village, that is Naxalbari village. So this village was located in West Bengal. So in this Naxalbari village, that one important rebellion that started in year 1967 in West Bengal. So important aim of this Naxal rebellion in that Naxalbari district is for rightful redistribution of land to working peasants. And this movement led by two important people, that is Kanu Sanyal and Jagan Santal, okay. So now today this movement became one of biggest internal security threat for government of India. So if you are talking about Naxalism, so these are mainly concentrated in some area that is called as Red Corridor. So this Red Corridor mainly spread across states like Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar and Andhra Pradesh, and even some districts like Kerala, Telangana and UP. So we can see this Naxalism that is present in India. So what are important causes? So the causes here can be divided into 4 causes. First one is development deficit. As you know here, whenever these tribal people who are present in some forest areas, that what happen, whenever there are no developmental activities that are happening in this area, whenever the people do not have proper education, proper basic amenities here, that will also leads to this Naxalism. And there is social inclusion, that means whenever there is increasing poverty levels among the people, and as well as there is some increased unemployment, there is lack of livelihood. So in this condition also we can see that will rise to Naxalism. And next one is government deficit, okay. So government is not addressing problems of this people, that is also leading to Naxalism. And there is exploitation deficit. So because of exploitation of these people by taking away lands by some landlords, and as well as whenever we are going for mining in those areas, so all these things that will lead to this Naxalism. And what are steps taken by government? So these steps that can be divided into two steps, that is hard approach by government and soft approach by government. Okay, so these steps will be very important regarding mains point of view. So if you are talking about hard approach, so government came with police modernization scheme and as well as fortification of police stations and national policy and action plan of 2015, and also government came with special infra fund scheme and also unlawful activities prevention act of 1967 and Samadhan, it is a one-stop solution to address this left-wing extremism. And let me know what is this Samadhan stands for. And next one is, if you are talking about soft approach, government came up with interaction. So whenever we are having interaction with these Naxal people, then we can understand what are issues they are facing, and finally we can bridge a gap. Okay, and next one is aspiration district program also came up with government, mainly for providing some important eminent facilities and as well as development of this district. And next one is government came with Roshini scheme, mainly for skill development, and government also came with surrender and rehabilitation policy. That means if at all any Naxalist who is surrender, he will be given some incentives and he will be also provided with government jobs also. And next one is government came up with the residential school scheme, and finally government also came with the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Okay, so these are some important steps which are taken by government under soft approach. And if you are talking about way forward, so we can talk about this way forward in 4 heads. First one is good governance. We need to go for good governance model. We can go for developmental activities, okay, in this area. So we need to address issues of these people in this area. And next one is we need to go for dialogue. Okay, dialogue between government and Naxals will help to resolve this problem. And next one is we need to go for employment generations in these backward areas. And finally, we can also work on empowerment of these weaker sections of people like SCs and STs which are located in this area. So this is about way forward. So this is gist of this topic. And now let us see today's mains question. In India, a sector-led action-based approach could provide the framework to drive low carbon transformation. Elaborate. So this article mainly, this question mainly regarding article which we discussed regarding this low carbon transformation. Try to read article at least twice and try to write answer, and answer should be written within 150 words. So many students, they are exceeding this word limit. So I am repeatedly saying about this maintenance of word limit. So you have to write answer within 150 words strictly. Okay, so by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll this current affairs package course. Thank you so much.